wish I was crazy. Crazy people don't worry about any of this stuff. Don't you see crazy people? They enjoy their lives so much more than we do. There's a guy in my neighborhood, spray paints his car all these different colors, fills the inside up with empty Coke bottles. He drives in there, he climbs in there and drives around. His head looks like a hairy prize inside a gumball machine. What's on his calendar? I bet it's a lot more fun than yours. You wake up in the morning, I gotta go to the bank. He's like, I need more Coke bottles for my rocket ship. Busy, busy day. I get those guys, I really do, because they basically look around at life and they're, all right, look, life is a game. I obviously have no chance of winning this game. I quit. You get dressed up and go to work every day? I put peanut butter on my lips and talk to squirrels. When I was younger, I used to see the crazy guy outside in an open robe and slippers yelling at the sky, you know? I used to think, how the hell does that happen? Now I'm like, I can see it. Right? Because I walk around my own place that way. The only difference between us, I haven't gone outside yet. And I think we're all just 3 really bad days in a row from taking it outside. 3 miserable days. Lose your lover, lose your money. 3rd day wouldn't even take much. Just a little deodorant on the outside of your shirt. Ba-boom!
When this old world starts getting me down and people are just too much for me to face, I climb way up to the top of the stairs and all my cares just drift right into space. On the roof it's peaceful as can be, and there the world below can bother me. Let me tell you now, when I come home feeling tired and weak, I go up where the air is fresh and sweet. I get away from the hustling crowd and all that rat race noise down in the street. On the roof, the only place I know where you just have.
It's 7:08 at WRJN Radio. I'm Don Rosen. I want to thank you for joining us here this morning.
Up on the roof.
We got some rain on tap today. Highs near 37. Who would have thunk it when it was minus 11 the other day? Cloudy, lows around 34 tonight, 38 the high tomorrow with rain likely. And get this, next week in the mid-40s. Yikes. Right now it's cloudy and 35 degrees. And our second candidate for the 4th District Aldermanic District, Dave Maack, is here. And I want to thank you for coming in, schlepping in on this beautiful day today. Actually, it's better because yesterday my guest had to slide on her belly and come in the building because it was so slippery, even with salt on the sidewalk yesterday. How was it in front of your house yesterday? Pretty bad?
Yeah, it was pretty slick. I was not what I was expecting when I left the house, but I guess there were some issues there with buses and all that other stuff. I didn't get my newspaper, I'm sure.
You in the newspaper?
Yeah. But I'm sure it's because the roads were as bad as they were. And I went out a little bit later. I think I went out about 9:30, and it was a little slick, but not as bad, I guess, as what it was earlier.
Now, you're running for the 4th Aldermanic District. Now, you were an alderman once before. Which district were you an alderman?
I was the alderman of the 5th District. I didn't move. The district moved me.
Can I ask you something? What is with this redistricting stuff across this state? I don't see anybody else having this problem. Every time a party gets into office, they want to redistrict. Why do we do that? What's the purpose of redistricting, moving things around?
Well, every 10 years, the lines need to be drawn, and they're based on population.
Okay.
Population shift. You know, if the city's population shrinks, all the districts have to be in equal size, and so that's why they change at the local level for aldermanic districts. They're not based on partisan politics or anything like that. They're based simply on making sure that each district is equally divided so that you don't have one district that has 10,000 people in it, and the other district has 300 people in it. It has to be equally divided. And so because of shifting populations and things like that, sometimes the boundaries move. When I got on the city council in 2011, my district went all the way to High Street. And then a year later, it was time to redistrict, and that line moved to the north, and the 4th district came a little farther north. My district went less south than it had. And then I found out a couple years ago that all of a sudden I was in the 4th district, and the 4th district's gone way up, past School Street. And so it's kind of nice, because I have, my neighborhood and extension, but I keep the zoo and Lakeview Park.
And me.
And Don Rosen. 2 treasures within the, 3 treasures within the 4th district if I so win. I always enjoyed being the alderman that had the zoo in my district, had Lakeview Park in my district. The parade kicks off in my district, and so it's if I win, it will be an exciting 2 years to get back into it and get more involved in the daily aspects of city government. And I have never left the community. I've always maintained my presence within the cultural aspects. I've been involved with the Fourth Fest Board since 2011 when I got off the city council. I joined the Fourth Fest Board, and so every parade, as you know, because you have a front row seat for the parade every year, I'm zipping up and down the parade route.
In your golf cart?
Yeah, in my golf cart. Had a chance to serve as the Fourth Fest Board president for 2 years, which under my leadership, we were able to accomplish quite a bit. We rebranded. We did a couple other just neat things, introduced some new fundraisers, and so I've enjoyed being on that board. In the past, I've been involved with the Boy Scouts, with Leadership Racine, which I'm still involved with. For a long time, I was involved in the Indian Summer Festival up in Milwaukee, which was a cultural festival.
Stop right there. Now, you do have a Native American background, right?
Right. My grandfather was born on the White Earth Indian Reservation. And I was thinking about this the other day. I never had a chance to meet him. He died of lung cancer. But here was a man that came off the reservation looking for better opportunities for himself. My grandmother here, he had family in the Racine and Kenosha area, so it was a logical place for him to settle. Got a job working in a foundry, and I wonder what he would think, that his grandson was on our city council and was able to achieve, some nominal success.
Now, back up to the redistricting. Do the populations shift that much in Racine?
Well, I don't know what the maps look like or what the districts look like beforehand. There's a couple other variations that they have to take in account. Because I remember when we went through the process after I first got on the council, and you had to balance the county districts also. They all have to fit together like a jigsaw puzzle. And so there were several different variables that played into it, and each district had to fit into this larger district.
Now, we're going to go over some of your resume here because we got the full hour to talk to you. Now, you were also, let me go through the beginning. Are you from here originally, Racine?
I was born and raised in Racine until I was about 9 or 10. Went to Jersted Agerholm School, K through 3. Mm-hmm. Then my parents put me at Sacred Heart for a year, and then they bought a little hobby farm in the town of Summers, across from Pets, adjacent to Hawthorne Hollow. And so I grew up on this little hobby farm, had the run of 60 acres as a youngster, would just, never was inside the house, would leave the house in the morning, would head out to the woods and had these adventures, just exploring. And then when I took the job in Racine County in 1990. I was looking for a house either in Kenosha on the north side or in Racine, and we found a beautiful Cream City brick house on the north side of the city of Racine, and we've been here for 34 years.
So you're kind of a local yokel.
Yeah. Basically born and raised. And then my family was still here. My grandmother lived on the north side. So Racine has always been home.
So a hobby farm, that would be like somebody, it's not a real farm, but somebody who wants to grow a couple of vegetables and...
My dad had 7.5 acres.
Oh,
there was 4 acres in alfalfa, and he had a couple horses. And then over the years, he had a couple goats. He had some chickens at times. I mean, nothing really big, but summers 3 times a year we were cutting and baling hay. And
I don't picture you as Farmer Gray out there.
Yeah, not one of my favorite times of the year. Alfalfa bales are very heavy. They're very scratchy. You know, your arms are all scratched up by the end of the day because, you know, these things are heavy and scratchy.
Well, you know, when I grew up on Long Island, back in the 40s and 50s and 30s, it was all farmland out there on Long Island. And when I was growing up as a kid there was one farm left in Nassau County. It was in Belmore. And my father was good friends with Guido Foglia, who owned the farm. And we used to go down there just around the harvest when whatever was growing there, I'm not even quite sure what was growing, was taller than I was. So it must have been really big. And they used to have this giant thing for their entire family, these tables outside set up. And they used to harvest whatever they would, and they used to cook it right there. Plus, they didn't have animals there. It was an animal farm. But it was the last farm. It's gone now. It's housing now. But I remember going to that farm, and I said, gee, that's interesting. A farm right here in... not far from where I live. Well, it's gone now. They don't have those anymore. But you were, so you went to school. What did you do when you came out of high school?
Well, I went to Carthage College, and it took me 3.5 years to go through there because of class overloads and taking summer school. And so I started out as a political science major. Wanted to go to law school. At least that's what I thought I wanted to do. And then I had my political science classes all in by my start of my junior year. Instead of taking electives, I figured out at Carthage that there were classes within my major that counted towards electives. So while all my buddies were being steered to math classes and history classes and all that, I'm strategically looking at, okay, what can I get double credit for?
Hold it right there. We're talking to Dave Maack, Aldermanic, 4th District Aldermanic candidate for your vote. We'll talk more about Dave. We got him in college now. He didn't leave yet. He's still there. 719 WRJN, a civic media station, hometown radio. Refresh. Don't move.
If you see me walking down the street and I start to cry each time we meet, walk on by, walk on by. Make believe that you don't see the tears, just let me grieve in private, 'cause each time I see you I break down and cry. Walk on by. Don't stop.
with Dave there for a minute about the S.C. Johnson Golden Rondale Theater at the 1964 World's Fair. And I was at it at the 1964 World's Fair. I went in to see the movie they were showing in there. All these places showed movies, like the General Motors Pavilion had a thing called Futurama. I remember you sat in this little thing that took you on a ride through the future. It was, if you see it today, it was kind of really hokey because they had little models set up. You just went through where the models were, and there were like things flying through the air on strings. It was really hokey.
Kind of like going through some of the exhibits at Disney World where they were envisioning the future and the people mover, and it's so 1960-ish.
Well, I told this story on the air yesterday. I think it was yesterday or the day before. I went to the World's Fair so many times, and one time my parents were with us, and they went to the restroom, and my brother and I were looking at the phone booths they had there, touch-tone phones, push buttons. And nobody had ever seen those before. They were debuted at the World's Fair. AT&T had them all over. Well, actually, it wasn't called AT&T. It was called the Bell System back then. Bell System had them all set up. And my dad came in. I said, "Can I make a phone call on those, Dad? Come on, can I call Glenn? Can I call somebody?" And he said, "Don't worry about it. You're never going to see those phones. They're just here at the World's Fair. They will never have them in our homes." Of course, my father, a great seer of the future, said, he let us play with it, but he wouldn't let us make a phone call on it. But...
Well, growing up, I remember you had to pay extra for touch tone.
Yes.
And so then and then people were able to buy their own phones instead of leasing them. So I bought a touch tone phone, but it had a little switch on the back that it was either pulse or touch tone, and because we didn't pay for the touch tone service, it was on pulse. So we got to push the buttons, but it was type of thing. But we were talking about college, and so I went to Carthage. I get my political science major in by my junior year. All my buddies now are starting to take classes in their major. What do? So I declare myself a business major so I can take classes with my buddies. And then I realize, there's some classes within my business major that count towards my the basics that I needed. For example, I needed 2 math classes. Well, accounting 1 and 2 counted towards those math classes. So here I am. I'm getting all those basics out of the way, core classes that you're supposed to take your freshman and sophomore year, and I'm getting them done through the classes. So by the end of my senior year, I now have a political science major, I have a business major, and one of the professors there, who happened to be a county board supervisor in Racine, Gunderson was his name, he says, "David, if you take one more class, the combination of your business class and your political science becomes public management." So I graduated in 3.5 years with 3 majors: political science, business administration, and public management. So I graduate from college, and I'm at an event in Kenosha. It's June of 1988. And I'm talking to Tommy Thompson, and he was in a good mood. And he said, "Dave, what are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm looking for a job, Governor." And he says, "Well, I'll give you a job." And I kind of chuckled. And the next day I get a phone call from his scheduling secretary, and we have a couple positions available. And finally they settled on one that was based out of Waukesha. And I ended up spending a lot of time in Madison, too, with it. But it was working with a fledgling new program called the Emergency Planning Community and Right to Know Act, EPCRA for short. And so I worked for the state for 1.5 years, helping to implement that brand new program. I wrote the first comprehensive planning guidance for it.
Was this emergency management?
This was emergency management, but working with one niche program. And in 1990, the director in Racine suddenly resigned, and I applied for the job. I was told, over 20 applicants, and I ended up beating them out. I was 23, 24 years old at the time, probably the youngest department head that the county had, and I built a program that garnered state and national recognition over the years.
So, and that's how you got started
That's how I got started.
in government.
Yep.
Tommy Thompson, huh?
Tommy Thompson.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's great. So
Which would explain why when I used to do political commentary here on WRJN, who did we have call in? Yeah. Tommy Thompson would call in, and I'd get a hold of him and say, Tommy, would you come on the program on election night? He says, Dave, that'd be great.
I have a picture with him at Salmonorama. He was there. Mm-hmm. And also, we were, here's my Tommy Thompson story. So we're broadcasting from a train, a new Amtrak route. And so we actually brought the radio station on there to broadcast. And I had all the equipment set up on this table where we were sitting. And I get up for a second, and the woman is sitting down there. And I said, I need to sit down there. Can you please get up? He said, well, that's my wife, and she's not feeling well now. I just told Tommy, the governor's wife, to get up so I could sit down. I said, well, it just moves over just a little bit, just so I can sit down in front of the equipment. But he was, and there's a picture of him talking to me when I'm sitting down at that table and telling his wife to get up. I mean, it's one of those moments that maybe I should have just let it go.
My daughter and I were on the front page of the Journal-Times years ago. He brought county government on the road, or state government on the road, and he would do this every year, pick a different part of the state. And so I'm holding my daughter, and I'm standing there, and he's looking at me, and boom, it hit the front page of the paper.
Ah, look at you.
So now I'm like worried because I'm working for County Executive Dennis Cornwell.
Oh, yeah, Cornwell. Yeah.
And I'm like, he's going to be upset with me. His picture should be on the front page of the paper, not mine.
Hold on one sec. Keep it right there. We're talking to David Maack. He is the candidate for the 4th Aldermanic District. We're going to get his thoughts on services, crime, homeless, a whole bunch of topics coming up here at WRJN Radio. 729, Hometown Radio Refreshed. This is your civic media station in Racine, WRJN Radio.
Mike.
I've been crying, 'cause I'm lonely for you. Smiles have all turned to tears, but tears won't wash away the fear that you never ever gonna return. To ease the fire that within me burns, it keeps me crying, baby, for you. Keeps me sighing, baby, for you. So won't you hurry? Come on, boy, see about
7:35 at WRJN Radio. Quick, some news headlines. See, the story is that Stuart J. Waddles, our news director, is watching in the news center throughout the day for us here at WRJN. 2 apartments in Racine where members of the Sheriff's Metro Drug Unit served some warrants this week. Local police, along with federal agencies, assisted in the drug bust at 2 units of the Wagon Lofts apartments on 8th Street yesterday. A statement says a significant amount of drugs were found, along with guns and cash. Several men were taken into custody and various charges related to drug trafficking and possession. There's no update on the search for a person that fired shots near a major Mount Pleasant shopping center. It was about 4 yesterday when police in the village got a call about a shooting near the Dollar Tree near JCPenney and the shops at Prairie Ridge. A suspect vehicle was being sought by police, with a social media statement from investigators saying there was no danger to the area. They're working on learning more about what happened. Regency Mall in Racine is set to undergo a significant transformation in the coming days. Last week, the City Council approved a conditional use permit for its redevelopment, with crews starting in February to tear down the eastern part of the structure. A Woodman's and 300 apartments are coming to that site. The land is expected to be cleared by midsummer, with a 2025 opening date for the new grocery store. An attempt was made yesterday to get all kids into school in Racine, but the ice impacted that plan. Some Racine parents are expressing frustration after the school bus failed to get their kids to class. The bus company ended up having to return some kids to the bus stop due to the hazardous road conditions. Some parents didn't know their kids were dropped off early, while First Student acknowledges that its communication early in the day could have been improved. The bus business cites unsafe roads as the reason for not getting all the kids to school. And finally, graduates of area technical schools will receive assured admission to UW Milwaukee. The new effort is for those who complete their associate's degree at Waukesha County Tech College, Moraine Park Technical College, Gateway Technical College, or Milwaukee Area Technical College. Officials say they now will have credits to transfer seamlessly to the UWM for their bachelor's degree. Those are some of the stories we're watching in our news center this morning with Stuart J. Waddles. We'll keep you on top of that and more news throughout the day here at WRJN Radio. David Maack is here. David's running for the 4th Aldermanic District. Oh, my days of being an announcer are coming to an end real quickly. 4th Aldermanic District, and he's our second candidate we're interviewing here. Let's talk about some of the things, and we'll get back to more of the bio later, but I want to get these in here. Services in Racine. How are we doing here in the 4th District?
Well, we can always do better. Racine is a community with a lot of potential. And I've lived here all my life. I've chosen to move back to Racine when I took a job working for Racine County in 1990. My wife and I have lived on the north side for 34 years, raised our family here. We have our grandchildren here. And we could have moved at any time. There was nothing holding us to Racine. And you hear a lot of people that talk about, I can't wait to leave Racine. There's nothing to do in Racine.
I love it here.
And I agree. This is my community of choice. I love Racine. We have a lot of potential. You and I both live a couple blocks off the lake. We can hear in the morning the waves hitting the rocks, and we can hear the monkeys at the zoo.
I hear the lion roaring.
The lions roaring.
When I took walks with the dog in the morning, I hear these lions roaring out there. Yeah.
And so, we have a lot of great things in this community. We have beautiful homes, our historic downtown, but yet we also have problems we need to address. We have issues out there. One is, I think, the property tax burden is too high on the average family. We need to find a way that we can maintain adequate services while also not overburdening the property taxpayer with that. And so that's a huge challenge out there. One of the problems that we had this past year, last couple of years, is they've been balancing the budget with those COVID relief funds. And at some point, what they've done is they've created a structural deficit. So at some point, the city's either going to have to make major cuts, or they're going to have to come up with revenue to replace those COVID funds. Either way, it's not going to be painless. And so what we need leadership that's willing to make the tough decisions, to look at everything, to weigh the benefits versus the risks and whatnot. And I've been in that position. I sat on the Community Development Block Grant Committee when I was an alderman. We would have, I'm exaggerating here, maybe $5 million in requests, but we only had $1 million worth of federal funds to be able to hand out to worthy organizations. And it was always a difficult process to look at all these community organizations and then try to determine what is the needs of the community right now and how do we best address that and what is the best use of those dollars. And we need aldermen with experience that are willing to make the tough decisions to set aside personal agendas and feelings and be able to look at it objectively. What are we trying to accomplish? What needs to be accomplished? And what's the best way to do that?
Lakeview Park is
Yes, it is.
If you're elected, will be in your district there. And I know I've seen signs all over Main Street. Let Lakeview Park be Lakeview Park. What's the story with Lakeview Park?
At some point, the mayor allowed a developer to work up a proposal to put housing on Lakeview Park. And when the neighbors, myself included, found out what was going on, we were in an uproar. I remember writing a letter to the editor saying, we need to leave Lakeview Park alone. This is what we should do instead. For example, when I was on the zoo board and as an alderman, the community center wasn't adequately used. And I had proposed that the zoo take over the community center and they could maintain it and do the upgrades to it and use it as an educational center. This would allow the zoo to provide more programming, and also when they do provide programming like that, they're able to charge for those programs, and it would allow them also to generate additional income or revenue, which they need in order to meet operating expenses. So unfortunately, that never got off the ground, and then we ended up having a fire there at Lakeview, and now the community center is gone. But it would have, excuse me, it would have made sense to have the zoo take that over, because the city wasn't using the community center. It was sitting there empty. But it's a park that's in need of upgrades. It's a beautiful park with a beautiful view. What I'd like to see, I'd like to spearhead a drive that would create a community design park that's inclusive, that children with physical needs would be able to utilize it, just like able-bodied kids.
And this is right across from the zoo.
It's right across from the zoo.
A lot of people use the parking lot from Lakeview Park to park to go to the zoo.
And there's no parking lot because they paved or they sodded over the parking lot.
Oh, did they really?
When they tore down the community center.
You know what happened since my dog died, since my dog had to be put to sleep, I don't take the walks down there like I used to. But we used to walk all the way down there to the zoo. I used to say to the dog, if you're not nice, see that lion? Be careful, that lion may grab you. We
also have a beach right down there, Zoo Beach.
Right.
And that parking lot was used by people that were going to the beach.
It's sodded over now. Okay. I wasn't aware of that. Let's talk about the homeless, because Dewey's closed down.
Right.
And from what I heard, I didn't speak to the owner personally, from the scuttlebutt I heard, that's one of the reasons, because there's a homeless center on his block, and I guess it was getting too crowded with them. And he's decided he was going to retire and didn't want to deal with it anymore. So how's that? And also, when I go to the library, up on the steps by Memorial Hall, when I go up there, a lot of homeless people up there, and they're cursing, they're screaming. They don't scare me, but I notice some people are nervous with them because they're yelling at them. Right. They're just yelling at people going into the library, and there's nothing you really do about it. So how do we solve this problem?
We definitely have a problem downtown. There's a couple different issues. It's not a homeless center that is being operated out of the church, but they're providing meals during the day.
Right.
So homeless people are congregating, and they're causing issues for some of the downtown businesses. You know, one of the things that I don't know if people talk about it that much is, and I'm not stereotyping and I'm not typecasting, but a lot of times with the homeless population, there's mental health issues. That's part of the reason why they're homeless. And so we have Halo, which is doing a great job, but it's not large enough to accommodate the problem we have in Racine. We have the issue over with the old YMCA downtown, where it's being overrun by the homeless population. That is...
What's being done with that, by the way?
The city worked out something with the Y, and they're going to end up raising it, tearing it down, which is... It should have been done years ago. Somebody should have stepped in. The Y shouldn't have let it get to the point that it did, but it happened. And so that will move the problem where I'm not sure, but we need to be a little bit more strategic. Halo's the experts out there in dealing with the problem, and I don't know if having a feeding site right downtown, in the middle of the business district, is the right way to go.
I see some of the people who partake in that service. I see them on the corner because I pass by there a lot. I don't live far from there. But I never gave it much thought until I heard the problem with Dewey's. And then all of a sudden I said, wow, you're right. I never noticed it was much of a problem before, but it is a problem. And it's always going to be a problem because there are people who are homeless. There are people, and again, I don't know their situations, but there are people with mental problems. And they've got to go somewhere.
Right.
You've got to have them somewhere, and they have to go where services are because a lot of these people can't fend for themselves. They have to partake in city services. So I don't know what the answer would be. I know it's not what they're doing down in Texas, busing them all over the country. I know that's not the answer because you're just moving the problem.
Right.
Texas is moving into somebody's neighborhood in Washington, D.C. So I know that's not the answer. When we come back from the break, I want to talk about the big C, crime.
All right.
And that's everywhere in America. And nobody wants it in their town. And I keep telling people, if there was a place in America where there was no crime, everybody would live there. And I got news for you. Crime would move there if there was nothing there. So we're going to be talking about that in just a moment. Real quickly here, just want to remind people, coping with a serious illness can be overwhelming. Where to turn for help? Fortunately, in our area, Hospice Alliance is known for their award-winning care covered by Medicare and many other community-based private insurance plans. When seeking hospice care, ask for Hospice Alliance, the award-winning community-based nonprofit that gives back through education, services, and grief support. To learn more, visit hospicealliance.org. That's hospicealliance.org. We're having a conversation with David Maack. He's running for the primary in the 4th Aldermanic District, which is February 20th?
I believe so.
February 20th, okay. The last time I said February 16th, I don't know why, because that's what was written down, and it wasn't. February 20th, it's a primary. 4 candidates running. David's the second one we're talking to. More with David Maack coming up in just a moment. It's 7:49 at WRJN Radio. Hometown Radio refreshed as civic media station. It's 7:52 at WRJN Radio. David Maack is here. He's going for the 4th Aldermanic District. He's in the primary. He's one of 4 candidates vying for that aldermanic job. They call them alders now. They don't call them aldermen or older people.
An alder is a tree.
Is it really? I didn't know that.
I'm a traditionalist. It's an alderman.
Okay.
I'm running for alderman.
But I talk to people and say, oh, you mean an alder? I guess so. Let's talk about the big C, crime. This is something that you'll never get away from. There's no place in America to get away from it. And it's here. It's in Racine. I don't consider it a lot, but it's got its crime. What do we do about that? How do we? You can't stop it. Do we? And I don't want to defund police. I think we should have more cops around.
Right.
So how do we handle this?
It's an age-old problem, and some of it's based on perception. Some of it's based on reality, and sometimes perception becomes reality. And if people think that you have a high crime problem, even if you can prove to them you don't, in their mind, crime is a problem. And we had a big issue with the police department. A year ago, we had a police chief who was from a different community, who still spent a good amount of time in that community, and the morale at the police department was awful. You had cops jumping ship and joining the sheriff's department, and that didn't used to happen. It was the other way around. Deputies would leave the sheriff's department and go to the municipal police departments. But, Racine County Sheriff's Office has benefited greatly by hiring, former Racine police officers. And then the chief decided to retire. And they have a new chief in there. He is active in the community. The morale has changed over at the police department, and hopefully we're going to stop seeing that revolving door. Hopefully we're going to see more cooperation with outlying departments, task force and other things like that, working hopefully closer with the sheriff's department to address issues like the drug problem and gang problems within the community. And hopefully we retain our officers and we can build up our police force. I remember when I was on the council, and I had the former police chief spin around the ropes because he was complaining that, even though we gave him 199 officers, he wasn't filling them, and he had excuses why he wasn't filling them. And I looked at him and I said, Chief, either you want those officers or you don't. And if you can't hire them, let's get them out of the budget. Now, I didn't want to cut police officers. That wasn't the intent, but it was putting his feet to the fire and saying, listen, we authorize this much, this police strength, you need to hire those officers. And same thing, hopefully we're seeing a turnaround in the police department with the morale, with everything else. We'll get up to full street strength. We'll start working cooperatively with the outlying departments on joint issues, and we can tackle and address issues like gang problems, the drug problems, and other issues out there.
In the last few minutes here, I want you to just talk to our listeners direct and ask for their vote.
Well, I would appreciate your vote. I have experienced leadership. I have 34 years of experience within this community. I worked and retired from Racine County, where I built a program that gained state and national recognition. I was honored at the White House for a program we implemented here. I've been active in the community on nonprofit boards and committees, commissions, and my wife and I have made this a community of choice. And we love Racine, and I've rolled up my sleeves in the past to do the heavy lifting, and I'm continuing to do that, and ready and willing to roll up my sleeves, tackle the issues that we have within the city. With experienced leadership, I'm going to hit the ground running, and I'm going to be able to adequately represent you and be your voice on the city council.
I always ask people, why would you want to get involved in this? Excuse me. Because half the people aren't going to like you, for no matter what reason. And every time you go to a restaurant, but you've been to every restaurant in Racine, I believe. I believe you hold the Guinness record for being at every restaurant in Racine. Why would you want to put up with that? Being bothered in restaurants, being bothered in supermarkets, people coming up and say, the pothole in front of my house, Dave, I think you should fix that pothole over there. And what about, there's traffic there on my street. I want you to fix that. They put a tree up. The tree fell down. I want it to be replaced. Why would you want to deal with this stuff?
It really comes down to you can complain about the issues out there, or you can be part of the solution. And I'm involved with Leadership Racine, and we've instilled within our graduates, and I graduated from the first program, community trusteeship. And I want to build a community. I want to plant trees that I know I'll never sit under, but my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren will. And so it's about community service. It's about being a part of the solution, not being a part of the problem.
And, of course, the primary is February 20th.
Correct.
And there are 4 candidates on there. David Maack is one of them. And go vote. I always tell people, vote. I mean, if you don't vote, don't complain. Right?
Exactly. Jean Jacobson, who I worked for, she was county executive, said, the world is run by those who show up.
Well, that's good. I might tattoo that on my arm. Yeah, very good. Thank you, David Maack. You're a good friend, and also good luck on the in the primaries. It's 7:58 at WRJN Radio. Coming up tomorrow, we're back again, 6 o'clock. It never stops. So we'll see you then, okay? Civic Media Radio, Hometown Radio Refresh, WRJN. Earl Ingram coming up next.